I'm from New York, as you can tell from my accent. I grew up in Flushing, which is in Queens County, New York City. So I tried pumping gas away from that wing, and it didn't help. And the fire got up to our number 1 engine, then up to our number 2 engine. It was really bad. A policeman came in a car and a gun, and he captured me. And they helped me into this car, and I sat in the front seat of the car, and he sat behind me with a pistol.
In terms of being a Jew and a POW in Germany at the time.
They knew I was Jewish because it said so on my dog tag.
And how did that affect your experience as a POW?
When you were in a camp like that, they would leave you alone. But I moved from camp to camp. I was in about 4 different camps because I had been in a hospital. So when you were being moved, then of course they could do whatever they wanted to you before you got into a camp. They were very careful about not wanting to upset people in the camps because you'd have 3,000 or 4,000 men in one of these squares. And if you got 3,000 or 4,000 men upset, they could do almost anything. So they would leave you.
So where did they do it? And what did they do and where did they do it?
Well, as you'd go from camp to camp, in one camp they were very hard on me and pushed me around and tried to scare you. One of the big problems in all of these things is you never know when a guy makes a threat, whether it's a real threat or to upset you or whether they're really going to do something. You really don't know that. So it's upsetting. And they put us in these 40 and 8 boxcars. They piled us in, and there was straw on the floor. There was no food, no water. And we were on those boxcars for a couple of days. And in Nuremberg, we got into a camp that had been used by I think that they were mostly Yugoslavian fellows. They were these things where the bunks were made of wood. There was no mattresses. They were 3 high, and I think it was 3 men to a bunk. And we had fleas. It was a busy time. There was a place to there was outside there was a latrine and a place where you could wash in the outside. Maybe 100 guys would be washing at one time. The latrine was busy.
How long were you there?
I think in the camp I'm describing, there must have been maybe 15,000 fellows. There were about 10,000 Americans, and I think there were about 5,000 people from other countries.
And how long were you there, Grandpa?
Only for a few months.
And is that the camp you were liberated?
Yeah, no, we were there for about a month, maybe more, maybe 6 weeks. That camp was dangerous because they were bombing Nuremberg, and they had to miss our camp in order to do it. Once I was being interrogated, and really I was scared. And there was a window, and behind that window, the window was the outdoors. People were doing farm work. And I couldn't hardly believe that out there everything was perfectly okay. Where I was, it was hell,
Yeah.
It's an amazing situation.
Steve, remember you told me that at one camp they wanted to take out the Jewish prisoners?
Yeah, that's true. In one of the big camps in Stalag Luftwaffe, one of those camps, in one of the sections of that camp, the word came out that they wanted to separate the Jewish guys and put them in a separate place.
And they knew that you were Jewish?
Yeah, well, there was no secret because it was on my dog tag, my dog tags. In any event, the people, these camps were highly organized. The Germans were organized. There were maybe 10 German officers that were in charge of all of these camps. There was one German officer who was in charge of your particular camp. As I remember it, I don't think he stayed in that camp overnight. I think he'd just be there for this roll call in the morning and I guess whatever else he had to do. And in any event, when that word came down, the Americans that ran the camp. Now, what happened was the Americans had also about I don't know, but there must have been 6 or 8 men who represented all of the prisoners in the camp, in our particular camp. And those are the guys that made decisions for us. And they absolutely refused to do that. And that was pretty lucky for me.
You know, I was so glad to come back, and I'm so glad to be a part of it now. I mean, and you see what's happening throughout the world now, and this is really still the very best place to be. So philosophically, I've learned to accept a lot of stuff that when I was younger I really didn't want to accept. I was really very angry at the Germans for a long, long time. Now I'm not.